Your life is short and you have far less time than you think you do. So let's assume you live to 80 and you have around 50 working years in your career. And let's think of it this way. Let's say each major life decision you make, maybe you're moving country, maybe you're changing your career, and each real shot at doing something different, it takes somewhere between 4 to 5 years. That gives you roughly about 10 to 12 real shots at life. So I came across this in a Substack that I read from a writer named Jesse. And when I read it, I couldn't stop doing the math for myself in my own life. I thought about how many shots I'd already taken, the years in corporate trying to climb a career ladder that didn't feel like mine, that quarter-life crisis I felt in my mid-20s that made me feel really lost and having to start my life over again. And then 2 rounds of losing my job during subprime and then the tech layoffs. That kind of felt like failures at the time. And then having to learn everything from scratch in digital marketing, AI, and eventually starting a Google and then starting this channel. So when I counted what I have left, it wasn't depressing for me. I actually felt really motivated because when you realize the number is finite, every decision, it suddenly carries so much more weight because you want to make it count. And you stop saying yes out of obligation to other people to make them happy. And you start asking a whole different kind of question to yourself. So not to ask, is this a good opportunity, but is this the right shot right now for me? And the thing is that most people might miss this because not all shots are created equal. Some shots in life, even good ones, taken the wrong time, it will go nowhere. And some shots, even with the most basic, imperfect plan, can change everything. The difference comes down to 3 forces that Jesse shared, and I really resonate with them and I want to share them with you. Because once you understand what these are, you see your choices completely differently in your own life and work like I did. And who knows, you might all of a sudden realize how many more shots you can take in your own life. The first force is timing, and this one's the most important and probably the hardest one to control. So there's this concept in Chinese philosophy called Tian, which translates roughly to heaven or the sky. It also represents timing, the larger forces moving the world around you that you just don't control, but can learn how to read over time. Because life doesn't always reward you equally for every effort you put in. I mean, think about it, right? Most of your shots will stay small, or it might even plateau really early on. There are some opportunities or things that you've done in your life or career that felt like a good decision at the time, but didn't really feel like that in hindsight. And we all been there. It's very normal. A field will take off in ways that you never expected. That's just how life works. It's not random luck exactly, but it's not pure skill in my opinion. Think about the people you know who caught this wave at exactly the right moment. We can all think of someone that you didn't see for years until the high school reunion and then realize they did great in life. They weren't always the most talented person in the room, but they were paying attention when something was changing fast, either in their industry or in the world. And as an entrepreneur I met once put it really well, there's a glitch in the matrix. It doesn't happen all the time. But they noticed it and they moved the speed to understand that it's an unfair advantage that won't last long. By the way, I talked about this before and I'll say it again. One thing I noticed time and time again is that the most successful people I know all realize that the biggest unfair advantage is to move at speed based on what you see. And that's one quality that will help you get ahead on anything that you're working on. So I saw this in my own career when I was laid off the second time. I started learning digital marketing and tech skills whenever I could squeeze studying here and there between jobs, not because I had the grand strategy to one day dominate the industry, but I could feel something changing. And I'm dating myself a little bit here, but I used to remember the time when the only social media channels around were Facebook and Twitter. The iPhone had just launched. The world's attention was just moving online. And I didn't know at the time what I was doing, but I knew I wanted to be positioned inside that shift, not watching it from the outside. Because when what you're naturally strong at lines up with something the world's willing to pay for, and you catch that moment when the demand is rising, that's a complete different kind of shot. That's a shot really worth taking. So a few years later, that positioning got me into Google, which changed my career and later on led to building my own company. Now, I didn't get this opportunity because I was the best candidate or the most talented. There are so many other capable and smarter people in the job market than myself. This was purely because I had spent years building the skills in exactly the area they needed, and then spending all of my spare time learning and upskilling myself in an area that many people just didn't understand. So how do you know when the timing is on your side? Here's what I learned. The right shot, it feels like they're pulling you in, not pushing you. and you're not being forced in any way. So that momentum is really obvious, almost like this infectious thing that you couldn't help but want to explore this curiosity some more. And then think about the last time, maybe when this happened to you. People respond quickly to what you're working on. Maybe the doors they open for you without you having to really force it. You feel like you're being swept forward instead of always grinding on this uphill battle. So for me, that's when I realized that that's the sign and it's your time to jump in. It's probably really scary and something you've never done. You feel a bit sink or swim, but when the timing is right, you move and you move fast. And the second force is place. And in Chinese, this is represented by D. And this is the one that you actually have the most control over. So I love that Jesse said you cannot catch waves you cannot see. And where you position yourself, your industry, your environment, the conversations that you get to be part of, those they will determine what opportunities you even have access to, right, in the first place. Now, I'm not saying you need to pack up and move tomorrow, but let's say you want to get into tech. It wouldn't hurt to be in Silicon Valley, I suppose. But what I'm saying here is being strategic about where you put yourself, given where you are right now. So I moved to London from New York City in my 20s because I managed to get a job after doing a year study abroad in London. And the job market wasn't great in the US at the time. So I was moving and making my shots purely based on a need. I needed a job. And London gave me a great starting place for my career. But I think instead of thinking about geographical locations, the second force of D for me was being intentional about where I am. So I joined communities where the right conversations were really happening. At the time, I worked in the financial center, the city, as people call it in London. But I was minutes away from Silicon Roundabout, where a lot of tech and digital events were happening. So I built relationships with people who were maybe one or two steps ahead of where I wanted to go in those industries. I had virtual mentors that I follow their content online and learn from them. And I made my work visible by building a personal brand earlier on before I even realized I needed one. So opportunities could find me online. And what I learned from that is doing all of this, you get to attract them instead of chasing them. And here's the thing is that most people they underestimate what they already have access to. You probably already have a skill, a connection, or a piece of knowledge that can open doors for you. So if you're willing to use it without fear and look hard enough for it, and let me share something with you that I feel have really contributed so much in my journey so far. And that is to become incredibly creative at leveraging the limited resources you have instead of regretting the resources that you don't have yet. We tend to always focus on what we lack rather than looking for the opportunities that already are happening right in front of our eyes. So takeaway here is this, is that you can't surf from the shore by watching the waves. You need to be willing to fall and get wet in the water. And position yourself closer to where things are forming, even before the waves arrives. And being incredibly proactive at being part of the right rooms, the right conversations, the right ecosystems is probably one of the best, highest leverage moves that you can make right now. The third force is people, and that is Ren. Now, this one's going to feel a bit counterintuitive because this part actually matters a lot less than you think. And I'll tell you why. So when it comes to people, I'm not talking about the people around you. I mean, you specifically. So your skills, your talent, your effort, and you being ready to do the thing. So we've been taught that if you just work hard enough, get good enough, prepare enough, all behind the scenes, and the results will magically follow. And I think that belief actually keeps a lot of people stuck. So here's what I actually see in my own journey and career. So someone with average skills who step into the right wave at the right moment will actually outperform a highly talented person who is grinding and hustling in the wrong direction with all their efforts almost every single time. And timing and place, yes, they do create the right conditions, but you determine whether you can take advantage of them. And that's now up to you. So what I'm saying here is that you matter. Develop your skills, build your judgment, staying curious. These things determine whether you can recognize a good shot when it appears and then actually execute and act on it. So if you're waiting until you feel fully ready before you take your next shot, you're probably waiting too long. And the takeaway here is that getting ready for it and then preparing forever in the shadows cannot fix bad timing. But great timing can make someone who's 80% ready look extraordinary when they have what it takes. You just gotta make the call and take your shot. So how do you know a shot is worth taking then? Here's some of the signals that Jesse shared, and I want to share them with you. I can definitely resonate with some of these in my own journey. So first is that your gut says yes before your head can convince you not to do it. And it's not because you convince yourself, but because you just know. And you probably know what that feels like, right? Second, there's this external momentum happening around you. You see other people who are moving really fast without being pushed. There's this incredible energy building around it. And then the number three is that the downside is actually capped, but the upside is unlimited. Even if it doesn't work out, you'll be stronger, more connected, more educated, maybe better positioned than you are right now. I mean, that sounds like a no-brainer to me. So for the fourth one, it opens doors to future better shots. Not just this one, but what comes after. And for me, learning AI a few years ago was a no-brainer because even if I failed, I still end up with incredibly useful skills I can leverage in anything I work on. And you're probably also wondering, how do you know if a shot isn't worth taking? So that's usually when it feels like you're being forced or it feels desperate. And you're only moving because staying still feels uncomfortable, not because something is pulling you towards it. And you probably feel like the downside is actually very high. So is the risk. And the learning is actually quite limited. Or maybe it's a dead end and it's a shot that doesn't expand your abilities or connect you to something bigger. And you just don't feel excited about it anymore. And I have to be honest with you. So the hardest part of all of this is having the discipline to walk away from a bad shot, to know when to quit in life, and the courage to move fast on the good one, even when you feel scared to do it. So here's how I see it, is that you have this finite number of real shots in your career and your life. The ones that work, they happen when the timing is right, when you're positioned to see the waves forming, and you're ready to move when that moment arrives. I'm not sure Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, actually said this, but there's a quote that I want to share with you, which is, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And I think there's so much truth in this, right? Because opportunities are only controllable to a certain extent. But when you make yourself a forever student of life, you'll make sure that whenever they do happen, we can move fast on that opportunity. And this isn't a productivity or career hack or life hack in general. If you stuck to this point in the video, you probably don't believe in them like I do anyway. It's a different relationship with time. So when you accept that your shots are limited, you stop spending them carelessly. And you stop saying yes to things that feels comfortable but probably leads nowhere. This is a video from another time, but I believe that comfort is the biggest reason that so many of us feel stuck in life. And I think it's time that you stop waiting for the perfect conditions that will never happen. And you start treating your choices like they actually are, the investments in the person that you're becoming, and then be proud of the choices that you're making every single day. So I did a calculation, and I think I have about maybe 5 shots left. It doesn't scare me. It actually makes me super focused and motivated. It makes every decision feel more real and more worth it given my limited time. So count your shots, be honest about where you've been positioning yourself. And when you feel that pull towards something with real timing behind it, don't talk yourself out of it. Make that shot count. I'm Laurie. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next video.